She vanished without a trace. No forced entry. No goodbye. Just silence hanging over a multi-million-dollar home in the quiet hills of Arizona. In the early hours of the morning, Nancy Guthrie disappeared from her residence in the upscale community of the Catalina Foothills, and what investigators uncovered in the hours that followed would transform a missing persons report into a full-scale federal investigation. Before we go further, make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell so you can get first-hand updates on this story and others as new details emerge. What was first described as a sudden disappearance quickly took on a darker tone. Nancy Guthrie, a respected philanthropist and private individual known for her reserved lifestyle, had spent the evening at home. By morning, she was gone. There were no signs of a struggle visible from the outside. Doors were closed. Windows were intact. Her car remained in the driveway. Her phone was missing. And yet, inside the house, something had gone terribly wrong. The timeline investigators pieced together suggests that Nancy vanished sometime between late evening and the early hours of the next day. Friends and family became concerned when she failed to answer repeated calls and missed scheduled commitments, something described as highly unusual for her. When authorities conducted a welfare check, they stepped into a home that seemed orderly at first glance. But beneath that calm surface, evidence pointed to something far more sinister. Security footage, or rather the lack of it, became one of the earliest and most troubling discoveries. The Guthrie home was equipped with a high-end surveillance system designed to monitor both the interior and exterior of the property. Yet during a critical 41-minute window, every camera feed went dark. Not due to a power outage. Not due to a system malfunction. Investigators determined the system had been deliberately disabled. The precision of that window stunned detectives. Whoever was responsible appeared to know exactly where to access the system and how to interrupt it without triggering immediate alerts. The blackout occurred at a time when Nancy would have likely been alone and vulnerable. Once the system came back online, there was no visible activity captured that could explain her disappearance. Experts reviewing the digital logs concluded the cameras were manually overridden. That suggested familiarity, not just with technology, but with the layout and configuration of the Guthrie home itself. It raised the chilling possibility that this was not a random act. As investigators examined other digital clues, another disturbing detail emerged. Nancy wore a pacemaker that synced with a health monitoring app. Medical devices of this kind typically provide real-time updates on a patient's condition, including heart rate and other critical data. Records show that shortly after the surveillance system went offline, the pacemaker app abruptly disconnected. This disconnection was not caused by battery failure, nor was it linked to routine maintenance. The timing, occurring just minutes after the cameras were disabled, deepened suspicions that the events were connected. Investigators began exploring whether the device had been tampered with or whether Nancy had been forcibly removed from the range of the monitoring system. Medical experts assisting in the investigation explained that pacemaker apps generally require proximity to a connected device or internet source. The sudden loss of signal suggested movement. Either Nancy left the home unexpectedly, or someone removed her from it. Inside the residence, forensic teams made a discovery that shifted the entire case. Blood evidence was found in an interior section of the house. It was not a minor trace. Authorities described it as consistent with a violent incident. Laboratory testing later confirmed that the blood belonged to Nancy. There were no signs of a robbery. Valuable items remained untouched. Jewelry was still in place. Electronics were undisturbed. The only clear disruption was the blood evidence in the disabled surveillance system. The presence of blood made it impossible to treat the situation as a voluntary disappearance. Investigators publicly classified the case as an abduction. They emphasized that Nancy had not left on her own and that there were clear indications she had been taken against her will. Days into the investigation, a shocking twist emerged. Several ransom notes were sent, not to Nancy's family, but to media outlets. The messages demanded payment in exchange for information about her whereabouts. Authorities immediately grew suspicious. Genuine kidnappers typically contact family members directly, seeking immediate financial leverage. Broadcasting demands through the media suggested either a desperate attempt at attention or a calculated effort to confuse the investigation. Law enforcement worked quickly to trace the origin of the communications. Within days, one suspect was arrested for orchestrating a fraudulent ransom attempt. Officials revealed that this individual had no confirmed connection to Nance's disappearance and appeared to be exploiting the situation for personal gain. The arrest, while significant, did not bring clarity to the core mystery of who had taken Nancy or why. Given the complexity of the case and the digital components involved, federal agencies stepped in. The Federal Bureau of Investigation joined local law enforcement, bringing in specialists in cybercrime, behavioral analysis, and abduction response. The involvement of the FBI signaled the seriousness of the case and the likelihood that the crime crossed jurisdictional lines. Investigators expanded their scope, reviewing phone records, financial transactions, and digital footprints. They conducted interviews with neighbors, staff members, contractors, and anyone who had recent access to the home. The focus increasingly centered on the possibility of insider knowledge. The 41-minute surveillance blackout required specific access credentials. The home's layout, including blind spots and entry points, suggested planning. There were no signs of forced entry, indicating that whoever entered may have used a code or key. Authorities have not publicly named any persons of interest, but they have acknowledged that the crime appears coordinated and deliberate. As the investigation intensified, Savannah Guthrie, Nance's relative and a nationally recognized journalist, made an emotional public appeal. Speaking through tears, she pleaded for Nance's safe return and offered to pay any ransom demanded. Her statement resonated across the country. She urged anyone with information to come forward, emphasizing that no amount of money mattered more than bringing Nancy home safely. Despite the public appeal, investigators cautioned against unauthorized payments or negotiations. They reiterated that law enforcement remained committed to resolving the case through coordinated efforts. Weeks later, the mystery deepens. Authorities continue to analyze evidence, reconstruct timelines, and pursue leads. The central theory remains that this was not spontaneous. The disabling of security systems, the strategic timing, the absence of forced entry, and the attempt to manipulate media channels all point toward calculated planning. Whoever orchestrated Nancy Guthrie's disappearance likely understood her routines, her home's security structure, and the technological safeguards in place. That level of detail suggests preparation and possibly assistance from someone familiar with her environment. As federal and local agencies continue their work, the community remains on edge. The quiet streets of Catalina Foothills no longer feel as secure as they once did. A woman vanished from behind locked doors, in a home equipped with advanced protection systems, leaving behind only bloodstains and unanswered questions. Nancy Guthrie's disappearance is not just a story of one missing person. It is a reminder that even in the most secure settings, calculated crimes can unfold with chilling precision. The investigation remains active. The search continues. And until answers emerge, a family waits, a community watches, and a nation hopes that this story does not end in tragedy.